Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. On this week's episode of That Sound podcast, I am joined by the one and only Mowgli Malone, Gavin Malone, my co host all the way from RD. But our guest this week is none other than Evan Prendergast. Evan, how are you
What's the
getting
crack,
on?
lads? Yeah, I'm good. I'm good. I'm really good. Busy, but nobody asked me to do any of it. So,
I'm sure you're busy for
yeah.
sure. Between co hosting a podcast, being in a number of different bands, and running a promotional company, I'm sure it's
Yeah.
hard to find
Dead
time to
cut.
do much else.
Ah, I'm good. I think my thing is I'm very good with time management. That's like I wouldn't be able to do it if I was all over the place, you know. I've worked with people that are kind of just do one thing and you know, it's like they've never seen the calendar app and have never written anything in it. That calendar app for me is it's a godsend. Like,
It's a blessing.
Yeah,
Gavin
yeah,
might
yeah,
ask
yeah.
you to give me a lesson on that, but
You just read my mind there. I said, you're doing any evening courses? Because that fella
yeah,
there is the worst man at keeping time.
yeah. The second we'll do it, just take out the phone, put it in the app straight away. Don't leave anything waiting because the human brain will forget it.
Yeah. So first of all, thanks a million for coming on, Evan, and it's
No
great to
problem.
have you on. I've listened to a lot of your podcasts with the boys in the metal cell, of course. The one night I was on, you weren't about. I think I was on for a chat about Pantera. You were busy.
Yeah, fucking double booking myself. I can only be in two places
Oh,
at three times.
that's it.
Like,
The Google Calendar is only one way,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Well, come here. One thing we always ask our guests when they come on first, like, your first memories of music growing up and that, and, any albums or certain song or what got you into music.
Oh, like I could give, you know, the really cool answers of like the heavier stuff, but
No, whatever it is, man.
I remember like getting the fucking cassette album of Five Invincible in an airport, and like Five, I'll still put my hands up and say they're unbelievable. I have no
Brilliant.
guilty pleasures whatsoever.
When the five set list comes on at a wedding, man, I'm the first
They're,
one out there.
man, they're playing in Dublin in
I see
November,
it.
and I think myself and Alex Vinci are going to go to it. He They announced UK dates because if he's driving WornOut or anyone for a tour, like I'm going to put on Five at some stage, and he messaged me and tagged me in it, being like, "Oh, if they play Ireland, we'll go and I'll buy tickets." And then a week later, they announced a Dublin gig and a Belfast gig. So I texted him. I was like, "Put your money where your mouth is now."
Oh, yeah, man. Great memories of five actually growing up in school and stuff. Yeah, that's a good one.
I think
That's a good one.
it's one of those things as well that like when you look back at, you know, especially when it comes to pop stuff, when you look back on things that you listened to when you were a kid, it's very easy to embarrass yourself. But
Yeah.
that Invincible album still holds up. It's unreal. It's so
Yeah, yeah. I got a flashback there. Sorry to cut across you. I remember going to a market in Drogheda and going and getting a Bewitched cassette.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
The dog in one of those videos looks exactly like my dog.
Right.
I've every so
first
often
cousin.
somebody tags me in a
Was this
first
Granda?
cousin. Yeah,
Was
yeah.
this Granda?
No royalties or nothing from it, but
Not.
I
Yeah.
get tagged and it gets mentioned to me more often than you'd think. Like it's usually
So how,
someone at 3 o'clock in the morning at a session sending me a video being like, "It looks like your dog." I'm like, cool. I know.
so how did the palette, we'll say, how did it develop then into, we'll say, more
Um,
rockier stuff, or what way did it
I
move? Did it
think
move from hip hop to dance or rock, or what way did it go?
it definitely moved heavier, and it kind of came from being a kid that grew up skateboarding and being around that kind of, you know, early 2000s, you know, the kind of extreme era. So I think a lot of, you know, heavier music and skateboarding became so accessible and so mainstream, nearly as mainstream as it's ever been, and
Yeah.
then like Tony Hawk soundtracks and stuff like that.
Oh,
And then
yeah. What a game.
I remember one of my friends in like primary school, he learned how to play guitar, and I just thought that was the coolest thing ever. So I started learning how to play guitar, and in my head, at the time he was like unbelievable, but like he could have just been doing four chords, and I was, how are you doing that? And it kind of just progressed from there. It was always friends, older brothers that had like some a Slayer
Brilliant. Yeah.
CD or something that there would have been no way I would have been able to find it as a kid from Kilkenny with no internet at the time. And I had I never had Sky, I never had Scuzz or anything like that, so I really had to, whatever anybody said to me was kind of gospel.
Yeah.
It was like, oh cool. It was, when you hear the rumors of Marilyn Manson removing his fucking bottom ribs, and I'm like, oh, that's fact.
Gospel. Oh, but we all definitely have. I know I have, and I'm sure you have, Luke. Like we all had like a gatekeeper, an older gatekeeper of that
Yeah,
Slayer and that mysterious music that was maybe one generation before us, and they
yeah,
opened the door, and it's like, whoa, it's like going into this fucking cave of wonder
absolutely.
of just like mind blowing. Like I remember like hearing Cowboys from Hell when I
Mm.
was like, 13 or 14, going, what the fuck is this?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
then even I've mentioned it before, like, Slipknot, not Slipknot, like even Down, and but then the same guy that opened doors for me led me down to Garth Brooks, and you know, he was brilliant though. He's my next door neighbor, and I've said this loads of times, but like we always had everyone I think has that older figure.
oh definitely, yeah, yeah. You're dead right. It's that kind of gateway thing. And I remember um a friend's older brother had Slipknot, like the self-titled album.
Yeah.
And I remember being in his bedroom and just seeing the cover, being like, what is this? These lads wearing masks. And I remember like I had never actually listened to it. I had just seen the cover. And I remember being in my uncle's house in Nace, and I had seen this CD in whatever shop. I think we were in Galway early, and I got it in, was it Javago? Is that still there?
No idea.
On Shop Street. Well, fucking everything's on Shop Street. But
Yeah.
I remember getting it, and we were staying in Nace, and like I was in this double bed on my own with the headphones on, and the only way to listen to anything is piercingly loud. And I
Oh,
remember
of course.
lying in the bed, pitch dark, and it was so unsettling and scary that I just started sweating. I was roasting hot. I'd say it looked like I pissed the bed.
I love
But I was sitting there wide-eyed, and like all the weird samples and that whole thing I think is sick. That intro, it just
Yeah.
blew my mind because I'd never heard stuff
Nobody did.
like, no, yeah, but that was the thing. It was like I'd never gotten such a physical reaction to listening to something like I did that Slipknot album, and stuff like that really just opened my eyes to everything else. There's all the new metal stuff that was around at that time, but I think kind
Yeah.
of Slipknot, and then a lot of grunge stuff, Alice in Chains, as we were talking about earlier, were massive influences because I had, again, like Kilkenny was almost the Seattle of Ireland. I've said that so many times, but
Yeah.
it
I
was.
heard you saying that.
Yeah, yeah, no, it really was. And
So
then
many grunge bands and stuff.
that was it. Yeah, yeah. Like a friend of mine, Ben, who is in chemical addiction, he was like a fountain of music knowledge for me. Like I go up to his house when I was like, even when I was 18, and he would just show me everything that I'd missed. Irish bands that I'd never heard of, and he was just like this encyclopedia of music that I just completely latched onto and was always finding new music. He'd give me DVDs. Like there's that Wild Hearts DVD where it's like it starts off at a live gig and then goes straight into like playing a full album in the studio, and it's fucking awesome. I can't remember what the name of it is, but the tunes on
Right.
that were unreal. But yeah, it's always having somebody else that kind of brings you into something and then you go mad yourself.
Yeah, yeah. Luke, who you definitely had people in your life, hadn't you, pointing you into different
Yeah, for
stuff?
sure. I had two older cousins who were into a wide range of different genres, but mainly into the rock and metal stuff as they hit their late teens. As you said, Evan, around that early 2000s era, they would only be a few years younger than Gavin. So that early 2000s, mid 2000s, skateboard, rocking, PlayStation games. I got all the good hand-me-downs, Underground to American Wasteland, Need for Speed, Most
Yeah.
Wanted. You're playing the cool stuff.
Oh,
And my cousins used to have these, the CD booklets. And they would have got their
Yeah.
cars around the time I was maybe 7 or 8. So it was novel to me then that you'd get out for a spin and this sort of thing. And, oh, what do you want to put on the radio? Or what are you putting on the CD player? Or different bits and pieces. And like you said about the artwork for Slipknot and different bits and pieces, I would have been drawn to a lot of the
Yeah.
album covers. And I remember 9.0 in particular being one album that I was like, all right, let me get my teeth stuck into this. And just like you said,
Mm.
your senses of being like, what is this? Having listened to, I was fortunate enough to have Sky in the music channels. And,
Mm.
my mum and dad both had a lot of different tastes in music. And then I would have listened to the like of Eminem, but even that pop rock stuff of the early 2000s, mostly just pure pop of McFly and Busted, then getting
Mm.
on to Guns N' Roses, then on to Metallica, and on from that to then hear Slipknot, or I'm trying to think of some other examples, but that was the heaviest thing known to man I had heard at the time, which was
Yeah.
like, this is unreal. But in the same light, their father owned a nightclub, so both girls worked in the nightclub and were huge into any of the modern dance, techno, pop stuff that was going at the time. So I ended up listening to, like early Rihanna stuff. Uh,
Yeah.
all of that in the same sort of thing going on, where you could be flitting here, there, and everywhere. And I think one of the coolest things I remember was I got an iPod for maybe my ninth or 10th birthday or something. And my two cousins, the girls, had a computer that I'd say was just absolutely ruined with all the music that was downloaded on it. But
Fair share.
yeah,
LimeWire.
the old LimeWire, I'd say, was just twisted
oh,
inside out. I could only imagine the briars that were growing inside that hard drive.
the tears running down loud Ulrich's face.
Yeah,
Yeah, Napsa, man. So remember that ad they done? It was
yeah.
like poor James getting thrown under
The
the bus. It
animated
was
one.
like beer good, Napster bad.
Metallica
Like,
bad.
But that's brilliant, brilliant
but
stories.
I
So,
remember getting like 10,000 songs all of a sudden. Just
Yeah.
whatever she had in the library, in the Apple, the iTunes library, just went straight onto the iPod. And I was like finding your
Yeah.
way through that. It was like, oh man. So there was a there was a lot of influence and a lot of good music. And then in a couple of years' time, I would have got my own laptop, and then she showed me how to work those sites to download the music that, whatever was current then, it
Another
was,
side.
yeah, whatever you wanted. So it was more Metallica, more Iron
expanded.
Maiden, more Blink 182.
Yeah. Yeah.
That yeah, some of those albums have just got stuck in and they stick with me till now. I just keep coming back to
Yeah.
them. So leading on to that, Evan, I suppose, do you have a couple of albums that you really sunk your teeth into then, that were, what should I say? Oh, that were imperative in your development as a player, that you still come back to now, that you're like, they're the OGs for me.
Yeah. Like, see, this is for me, there was a big kind of like Alice in Chains was a massive one. Deftones, like Abe Cunningham,
Ah,
Sean
man.
Kinney. But like they were huge influences. But I found myself much more influenced by seeing other Irish bands. Like at the all ages gigs, there was like Bob Ryan, who was in Slave Zero and Nearly Dead Jim. He was more of an influence on me than any like professional musician or any massive band doing it, because he being to see him do it, playing music that I loved. Two of my favorite bands when I was growing up were Nearly Dead Jim and Slave Zero. But I was being able to see it in person and see the kind of level that it was in a local setting. That set me off. That was more influential to me than hearing someone in a
Last week.
recording a $2 million album. I was like, I'm seeing this guy on a Sunday at 5 o'clock play some of my favorite tunes. So usually when I think of kind of influences, there is Sean Kinney, Abe Cunningham, but Bob Ryan is one of the first people that I think of when it comes to that. The actual Irish bands growing up were massive influence on me. Even Mike Got Spiked as well, another one that I was obsessed with. And they were like songwriting wise, they were a massive influence of just being, that kind of Mr. Bungle thing of why can't you put this in here? Like just like, that kind of genre melding thing from a young age was just there, that it was like there was a kind of a prog band, kind of like Tool-ish, that I played bass in, and we released an album, and like one of the songs had just a random reggae section in it because we like reggae. So why wouldn't you put it in? Do you know what I mean?
That's mad. Um, Going back then, like your first drum kit, how old were you?
First kid, I'd say I was about 15 or 16. I was doing vocals in a band, and that band dissipated. But I was that guy that like at every practice, when everyone went to take a break, I'd be like, "Can I have a go at your drum kit?" And I put more time and effort into playing his kit than I did writing any lyrics or learning any lyrics or anything. And a friend of mine had a Pearl Forum kit, and he was about to upgrade to an export kit. And I remember like sitting down with my parents being like, right, the band broke up, but here's my plan. I was
Have a
like,
plan.
I will work, I'll do whatever I need to do. I have half the money to buy my friend's drum kit. It's like I will do everything else to get the second part of if he can basically loan me the second half of the money, I'll I'll play it X amount of time. I won't play at certain times, you know what I mean? And I was so like, I think it's mad for a like we were living in an estate. So there was houses around us. It wasn't like I wasn't living in the back arse of anywhere. And I was very like passionate about explaining what my plan was and being realistic with it. But we also got very lucky that our next door neighbors, they were all musicians. And when we kind of went to them, we're like, look, Evan's thinking of getting a drum kit. If you say no, it's gone. And they were like, fucking brilliant.
Yeah,
Deadly.
yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So yeah, it was a Pearl export, or sorry, Pearl Forum kit that I had first. And then like every Christmas I get another tom, because growing up, more was more. So two rack toms, two floors, I had like two rides, two splashes, three crashes, China, any other fucking piece of shit that I could get.
Hey,
Added on. Danny Carey was, everything, being on Drummer World forums, just looking at pictures of different setups and being completely obsessed with it. But, in the box room, you couldn't open the door fully because I just had everything. I have pictures of them on Facebook, like, and it's mad to look at it, what I was. And then when I started, like, kind of gigging, you know, when I was like playing drums in bands when I was like 16 or 17 and realized I'm not fucking bringing that stuff to a gig.
In a rigid lorry.
Oh, jeez. The first time I remember um, a band that I was in supported Foxjaw Bounty Hunters. And that was the first time ever seeing a four-piece kit with one rack and one floor. And I remember getting there being like, "Oh, where are all the other toms?" They're like, "What this is?"
I've
I remember
I've
just being like, "What do I do?"
great story when you just say that, Evan, was one of the first serious kits I bought when I was like 15 or
Yeah.
16 after working 2 summers. It's actually for sale on adverts at the minute, funny enough. It's a maple Pearl Masters with gold hardware. And it
Oh,
came
Jesus.
with a rack, and it was three rack toms, an 8, 10, and a 12, and a 14 and 16 hanging floors. And the band I was playing
Oh,
in
yeah.
at the time was after getting, you know, a gig at the local town festival that's on the back of the 40-foot trailer, and
Yeah, yeah.
I'm like, this is going to be unreal Sunday afternoon or a Monday afternoon. Everyone's going to come. This is going to be class. Like, load in onto the stage, the rack, everything ready to go. Like, full setup. And it couldn't have rained any harder. They had canopies up, and there was about 20 people at the gig. Like on the Carrick Festival, Gavin, in like
Yeah, yeah.
2015 or something. And I was
Oh,
as
jeez.
proud. I thought it was the dog's bollocks with the new kit. I had to come. New symbols is everything. Like a rack above on the stage. Your man's like, we have a kit here. I'm like, no, it won't need it. I'm bringing me on. I'm like,
Oh,
why
I
did I
got
do
you.
that?
I, I
Uh,
remember as well, like I had like do you remember headliner symbols? They're like lowest of the low. I think they might have come with like pearl kits at the start. Like I can still see the font and everything, but I'd get more symbols, but I was never I didn't give a shit if they were good. I just wanted
More
more symbols.
symbols.
Yeah, yeah. So I had all these crap symbols for so long, just being like, oh, it doesn't matter. Now I have the same amount of symbols as Danny Carey. I have the same kind of setup until like years later, the first time getting a good, um, I think it was an AAX, and I was like, oh, that's what they're supposed to sound like. It was like hitting the others. And that just started me being like, I don't know what I'm doing here. Like,
It's it's funny you say that. I have a student, and he got some symbols for Christmas, and he wanted some
Mm,
pasties because that's what I was playing, and he's big into Slipknot as well, the earlier Slipknot stuff with
yeah,
Joey, and
yeah, yeah,
he might have got, the PST 8s or whatever, a great wee bundle for Christmas. And like you talk about, Danny, I have some of the power crashes, the signature power crashes. I love them.
yeah.
And after a week or two, when he come back to lessons after Christmas, he hit the crash one day, and then he came. I saw him sort of looking at them weird, and he didn't say anything. And he came back the following week, and he hits the cymbals again, and then he looks at me. I'm like, "Is everything okay?" He's like, "I think there's something wrong with my cymbals." I was like, "What's wrong with them?" He's like, "They don't sound like yours."
Do you know, I used to find as well, like, I'd be doing that thing where it's like, hitting them and they're like, the problem is it's not me. It's the symbols are dog shit. And
Yeah,
then
yeah.
my friend, yeah, I'd be like, look, I'm hitting them. It's obviously not me. And then my friend would come over, the guy that I bought the kit off, and he'd be like, oh yeah, well, I'll mess around with your kit. And he could play the same thing as me, but would just make it sound unbelievable. Do you know what I mean? Like whatever it was, it's like his feel because he'd been playing longer was just so much better that I was kind of looking at it then being like, no, it still must be the symbols. If I just get new cymbals, I'll sound as good as he does.
More symbols.
Yeah, just keep buying stuff, and I should sooner or later, be able to do it.
Suppose it's
Ju-
all part
Still
of
trying.
the development, isn't it?
Just
Oh,
remember that,
definitely.
ladies
Yeah,
and
you kind of.
gentlemen. It's not about how much you practice. It's about the amount of gear that you can buy, and not only the amount of gear, but how much money you can invest into the gear. The more expensive it is, the better of a player you are going to be off the back of having it. It is just an unwritten
Absolutely.
rule out
That's
there
fact.
that people don't realize.
Yeah,
It's gospel.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It is. It's gospel, like, and I hope there is some aspiring drummers that listen to this now and say that to their parents. Be like, I have to get the top class stuff straight away, or it's just
Great.
never going to work. Do you know?
I remember playing pots and pans when I was a young fella.
I still do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I hate absolutely everything. Like I irritate everyone I'm around because I just can't sit still either. Like my foot is always going, or I've had
Here's
people like in
here's
the
a good
office and work
title of a
being like,
track
"Can
for you.
you stop?"
Your next track can be
Go on ahead.
polyrhythms on the past the pot, Evan.
See, this is the thing. In a year or two now, you'll see a band that I'm in release a song like that, and I'll just pretend this never happened. Be like, "No, I came up with that."
The paperwork. Send the paperwork.
Yeah,
I told him that before we started recording, I swear.
yeah,
But yeah, so then both of you then, like Luke, you've had some nice kits over the years. I'm sure Evan, obviously you progressed then to what you currently have. Do you want to
yeah.
talk about what you're currently running at the minute?
Yeah, like I definitely I at the minute I'm using an acrylic SJC kit that I thought I would never own a kit as good as that, and it kind of came from, I think every drummer will have this where it's you start on adverts with this and you trade and swap until you keep building up. I did have Tama is the superstar, the one with the shallower toms.
Yeah,
I had that for,
the
and I loved it.
hyperdrives, I think, had
Hyperdrive. That's
really cool toms.
Yeah, yeah. They were great because I like to have my toms tuned low, but the shallowness kind of gave it a bit more attack. And then I remember one day just seeing this SJC kit, and I had no plan on buying another drum kit. My Tama one was great. I was delighted with it, and I saw it go up on adverts, and I was like, I have this one opportunity to do this now." So I got onto the guy and I was like, "Listen, I will trade you this Tama kit. I will give you extra money. What can I do to make this happen?" This was about, I'd say, 5 years ago. I was like, "What can I do to make this happen? Would you be interested in a trade?" And he was like, at first he was kind of like, I can't remember his name now, but you probably know his adverts thing. But like, he has a big drum workshop where he buys and sells drum kits all the time. Like, even the pictures of the kit, you could see there was like 20 other kits there. And he was like, I have another one of those Tama kits that I'm already selling, so I'm not sure. And I was like, "Look, what do I have to do? I'll give you X amount of money as well as the kit, just, so if it takes you a while, I feel like I need to get this kit." And he messaged me back about half an hour later and he was like, "Do you know what? I'm on holidays at the minute. I'm in a great mood." It's like, "Fuck it, yeah. When I get back, I'll meet you and I'll do it." And I was like, if it wasn't for him drinking like margaritas on a beach, I'd say I'd never have the kit.
Was it
So,
That's
was
yeah,
it
good.
John that had the Naas drum shop, Evan, by any
it
chance
might be.
from Kildare?
It very well might be. I can't remember who it was. We met in a petrol station, kind of halfway from Cork and wherever he was. So it might have been swapped it over. And this was, I think, just before COVID kind of kicked off. So during COVID I got to really, like, you know get to know that kit because I wasn't able to practice with bands. So I really got to, whenever I was able to go up, you know, going up, being on my own, and just really, you know, had no gigs, had no other people, so I could just focus on the way I wanted it to sound, what I wanted to do with it, and kind of, you know, really, I fell in love with it straight away. Even now, when we're touring, and you know, drummers, if most of the time we're bringing the backline, but I can see drummers being like, "What the fuck is this?" And I'm like, "Yeah, if any singer thinks they're being a big cool dude and stands on my kick, I will hop up there and hop you off with that fucking. If I ever see that, like an acrylic kit, my one crack, someone's head will be going through the rest of it." Like,
And now, a word from our sponsors.
We are absolutely delighted to announce that we have All Kings Competitions on board as a sponsor for season 3 of That Sound podcast.
All Kings are Ireland's original and best online competition website.
From Ferraris to houses to cash to luxury holidays and everything in between, All Kings have got you covered at great prices, great value. They can't be beat.
Check out All Kings on all social media platforms.
Thank you.
fuck that.
I don't think people realize how delicate the acrylic shells can be.
Oh yeah, and I haven't scratched, and this is doing tours with WornOut as well. Like I haven't. There's no scratch. There's no crack, and I'm checking often. But they're in perfect condition. So I think I'll start bawling, crying. I'll be bawling and swinging if I find something. Like they're not ridiculously fragile, but at the same time, you know, they're it's acrylic. Like
They look amazing. I've seen some of your videos. They look class. They look
they're
sick.
unreal, and you have that like that nice kind of vintage sound that comes with acrylic kits that you just won't get from wood. And the other thing, like I don't have any wood on my kit apart from my sticks. So like my snare is a Mapex sledgehammer, the brass one. Funny story about that as well. During COVID, sure, I had nothing. You know, I was still working, thankfully. And I remember, you know, same as everyone was doing when you couldn't go out and talk to anyone, just hoofing as much cans into me as I could. And I was on Thoman, and like, you know, every so often I'd be just, as everyone does, you just have a look through Thoman. And every week I was looking at this snare, and I was like, I was kind of like, "Do you know what? Fuck it." After like the ninth can of Beamish on a Saturday at like 2 o'clock in the morning, I was like, I'm just going to buy this because what else am I doing with my money at the minute? And when I bought it, it came up that it was sold out. I got the very last one, and I don't think because they don't make them anymore. To the best, I'm 99% sure that the sledgehammers, the brass snares, they don't make, and I happened to buy the very last one on Thoman. So if you know, whenever I'm telling people that story, it just reminds me that I'm like, fucking hell, I was that close to never having it.
Yeah.
But, thank God for the 9 or 10 cans of Beamish.
9 yeah, it can work wonders. 8 or 9 cans, I tell you, it can do a lot.
Yeah,
It can do a lot of good and it can do a lot of bad.
yeah.
Are you still
And
using
then,
that snare today?
yeah, I absolutely love it. Yeah, yeah. I I used to be someone that had a lot of gear, like a lot of spare things, whereas now I was going through so many different types of cymbals to try find what it was that was me, and I've really kind of fallen into like the Sabian, like HHX and Legacy. Like I use a 22-inch Legacy ride that I
Nice.
pretty much use as a giant crash. And I look, I break, I crack that ride cymbal, I'd say twice, 2, 3 times a year, and I just have to buy a new one. It is what it is. Like I've had people be like, "Oh, blah blah blah." It's like, look, it's my fucking money with the music that I'm playing.
Yeah, it's
Um,
quite heavy.
yeah, and it's like they're like, "Oh, if you hit lighter, do it." And I was like, the way I'm playing and the music that we're playing and the amount that I'm playing, it's like even with rehearsals, I'm doing 3 nights a week. It's gonna, it's a tool. It's not,
Yeah.
it's gonna happen. But
Part
for
of
the
it.
amount of time I get out of it, they last forever. Like, a lot of bands when they're, when they have a Sabian endorsements, they'll do big tours, and you'd always hear like they'll crack a couple of cymbals in a tour. So you know,
Yeah,
it's not
yeah.
like I'm going in there with a blowtorch being like, fuck this. You know?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah,
Cool.
that's kind of, and then Iron Cobra, or Speed Cobra, pedals. And I kind of have I got the, what is it? The, oh fuck it, the drive shaft.
Yeah, I heard they were
Because with double
great.
pedal, unbelievable. Because I was having problems being like, my feet are. I feel like, I didn't want to be blaming it on gear and stuff, but I find drumming it's like a physical science that if I think about what I'm doing physically, like I don't even say if I'm trying to learn a part, or say if we're writing something, there's something really hard that I'm struggling to do, but I know I can do it. I find if I just sit, don't tap, and just think about what my body's doing, you know, physically what I'm doing, and kind of realizing that, like, right, the power that I'm using here, the reason that sometimes you can have your tension even. I didn't want to have, the left one different to the right, because you're not actually, you're not solid. You're just learning to walk with the limb with that. And once I got this, the drive shaft, it changed everything. It's like, because the latency is nearly zero. Like, they're both feel the exact same, which meant then I could actually focus on technique and not have to worry about, moving your right foot a tiny bit more than your
Yeah.
left to make it not fucking gallop. And once changing that, it just opened everything up to me. If anyone, I know Tama now do the mirror rod, which is just a copy of the trick one. But if anyone's having problem with like kind of galloping things, and you are genuinely practicing and genuinely putting the effort in, and something's not right, try get one of them, because it changed everything. It's like I can actually, when I'm practicing and playing, if I fuck up, it's because I did it wrong, not because, my slave pedal is tighter or looser than my right, and it's impossible to get it all right.
And it
Yeah,
can
yeah, that's
be
some great.
it can be hard to do for anyone else out there. And I'm partial to playing the double kicks under Lombardo's advice, Evan, of just having them absolutely sewed and the camber fairly well back, and I've got used to
Yeah,
it over 4 or 5 years, and I suppose enjoy the element too then that it can be a leg workout, or sometimes
yeah,
the pedal will actually do a little bit more for you when you learn to
yeah,
play it that way. But like you say, no matter when I do his trick and pull the beaters back the same and let them flip, one will stop about 2 seconds before the other. And it's the slave pedal. So I must invest in the
yeah.
mirror rod or the trick rod to see.
You, yeah, honestly do, because even like when I put it on, and like this is not changing any. I have it, what, a year and a half now. Um, Confi from Hero and Error, he was the one that was kind of being like, "Look, get this thing; it's unbelievable." And I just put it on, didn't change any settings, and did like a before and after thing. Um, and the after, like, it's one of those things when I looked at it, like, all I could do was start laughing. You're like, how has this happened? And any drummer listen to this now. It was so smooth. I didn't change any. I fine tuned it after, but the second I started playing, it was like my feet had legs. You know, it changed everything. And I have my actual pedals, like the actual foot of the pedal up a little higher, because I play everything quite hard. So if it's too low down, it'll just bounce. I'll get kind of a recoil from
Yeah, from the
from the chain.
footboard itself, the chain gets
Yeah,
caught
yeah,
and does
because
that
it's
weird wavy motion.
and you're not going to get a speed, or you're not going to get kind of power behind that if it's when it's coming back up, if it's bending. So I kind of lift it up, move it back, so when it does hit, there's a full extension that it can come fully back, and the the chain is doing its work properly. Like there's never like that Mexican wave thing. Like
Yeah, it's cool. Cool. Luke, any kits you want to chat about?
Uh, what should I say? I'm a massive fan of the acrylics. Evan, having got an acrylic
Mm,
kit not so long ago myself, but I am glad that I bit the bullet and took one into the collection. They are fabulous, as you said, a great
yeah.
vintage sound to them. Thunderous, thunderous
The
toms.
whole yeah, the whole tuning way better just because it's not wood. So if you have it in a practice space, that 1 minute could be fucking freezing, and then it could be absolutely roasting. Then, like with wood, obviously wood will
You got your
it'll
shrinkages.
depend on yeah, but with acrylic it doesn't, and then with a brass snare it's not doing that either. Like
Which is funny
it
too.
doesn't.
I find my shells are quite snug. Like vintage, they're almost that slight
Yeah,
bit of oversize where the modern heads are they're just fitting nicely. But that makes for savage tuning.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I got that TuneBot thing a while ago just to kind of see how it is. And when I was first doing it, I was kind of like, it was doing my nut in, because I was kind of putting it on finger tight and then just getting the wrinkles. And I was relying on it too much because I would always tune by ear. And with this, I was like, look, I'll go by the numbers. But when you're trying to do it from the start by the numbers, like if you turn, one lug slightly, when it's looking at these numbers, it could jump up massively. So I found I'll kind of tune it by ear and just use that tune bot to fine tune things, rather than, if someone's getting it, still definitely learn how to actually tune drums. But the tune bot's unbelievable for, fine tuning it, and you can kind of, there's an app that comes with it as well, that you can get the relative pitches of your drums. You can kind of put in the size of the drum, what kind of resonance you want, what note you're kind of looking to do it. So like I've my toms in a perfect fifth, and I've always kind of sorry, I've always done it that way. But just being able to have something that can just fine tune it, and then just putting lug locks on it, and yeah, it's made a massive difference.
Nice. That sounds fairly interesting.
Yeah, they're cool, all right. Again, I wouldn't use it as an alternative to, actually just tuning. You can definitely get lost in seeing numbers. You can see numbers being like, oh, well, this is right, but it's not sounding right. And someone could say to you, being like, that doesn't sound great. And you'd be like, well, it's actually 108 hertz the whole way around. I'm like, okay, it sounds shit. So
Yeah, yeah, you're like, well, it
your
should be
ear is what comes down to
112.
it.
Yeah, it's
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
the age-old adage of buy with your ears, not with your eyes.
Yeah, why would you? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
On that note, Evan, for any of our listeners who are not aware, you should check out some of the bands that Evan plays in, which he will kindly let you know the links to the socials at the end of the podcast. But the drumming has massive demands physically. So
Yeah.
that'd be something I would be interested to hear you talk about your preparation to play
Yeah.
sets with those physicalities. What does your practice routine look like on and off the kit?
Yeah, like in the last 2 or 3 years, especially, everything that I've been doing has gotten more technical. Like There was always a lot of power in everything, but now, Uncultivates, when, we started doing Uncultivates, there was a lot more, like, there was a lot more blasting, which was not something that I was doing all the time. So kind of, constantly learning something new. And it's one of those things that, like, I'm 34 now, and I want to be doing this for a long, long, long time. And it's something that when you're young, you're not conscious of your body. It just, some things it just does. You're like, yeah, cool. Whereas now I'm like, before playing a gig, I won't drink because I need I need my headspace, because the songs are getting harder and more complicated to play, that it's not just like, oh, I'll just sink 7 or 8 pints and we'll go up and have the crack. It's not like that at all. Like, I have to be focused. It is very physical, and I can't stress enough to people how important stretching is. Warming up, stretching. I find if I do 10 minutes, like, say if we have a rehearsal, I'll be up there maybe half an hour earlier than everyone else. I'll stretch and warm up, kind of. I'll do my feet, kind of just regular normal stretches, same way as if you were about to play a match, like. And then what I'll kind of do is I'll do kind of singles on my hands, then singles on my feet, and then what I'll do is, like, right, 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 left, 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 and I'll do that with my right hand and my right foot at the same time, and then I'll switch from 8 to 4 to 2 to straight singles with my feet and hands at the same time. And it kind of keeps everything, concise together, just because you could have a day where you can warm your hands up, no problem, you're doing your rudiments before playing. But then when you get up to play, you've just been sitting down all day, and your feet are just not going to work, especially when you're playing stuff that's quite demanding with your feet. So that's, like, a big, looking after my body has been more and more important to me. The more I've kind of gone further into music and realizing that it's becoming bigger and bigger, and I need to be doing it for a long time, that, there's sacrifices that need to be made. At, like, right now, when I'm just so busy between gigs and tours and running shows and everything, I stop even having drinks at all. Like, I haven't had, I can't remember when I last had a drink, but just little things like that you kind of, I sacrifice stuff like that, because I just don't have if I'm hungover, I go to a practice, I'm wasting my time, I'm wasting whoever's there with me time. I just can't do it. I'm not on form, and you have a responsibility to yourself and the people that you're playing with, not to waste anyone's time, because everyone has jobs and you're coming up after work. And if you're just fucking dying hungover, didn't bother doing any prep, didn't bother warming up at all, and you're just like, oh, sorry lads. Like, look, you can have off days, don't get me wrong. Most days are fucking off days for me. But yeah, just looking after your body, being aware. Like, I won't eat too close to playing, because nobody wants that.
Yeah.
Yeah, just I've become just more aware of my body and what it wants and what it needs. That whole thing, I remember my mom used to say, is like, listen to your body, it'll tell you what you need.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, like what?
10 cans of Amish.
Like,
Yeah, what?
yeah.
Yeah, that was it. I was like, yeah, I want to drink cans.
Yeah.
To buy a new
Whereas
snare
now
drum.
I'm like, yeah.
It sounds
The
like you
body-
have to prepare.
The body
Good
wants
job.
Beamish and the heart wants a new snare.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. So I just put them together and you get both. Like it's they go hand in hand. But yeah, like I'm definitely play because I'm playing in multiple bands as well. Like I said, I'll be practicing with three different bands 3 nights a week. On top of everything else. So I'm kind of like, you hear of drummers that play for years and they have like carpal tunnel, they have problems in their knees, they have problems with this, and a lot of the time it's, oh, I didn't do this, when I should have, I didn't look after this, and blah blah blah. And I'm kind of trying to preemptively not have to or at least prolong it as long as I
Yeah.
can, and just be very very conscious of my body. Because no matter who you are, you only have it for a certain amount of
Yeah.
time. Like you rent your body, really. So and if I'm going to treat it like shit, I'm gonna,
Gonna give out to you.
yeah, absolutely, and then I'll give out to myself. So
But it sounds like you prepare your body and your mind. Like,
yeah,
it
yeah, yeah,
sounds
very
like a
much.
lot of your mind as well. You have, like you said, you won't drink, you won't eat. You,
Mhm.
like I can imagine you go in and just kind of you're in the zone. You maybe
Yeah,
listen to the music in your ears. I don't want to chit chat. I'll have my crack after the show. You know,
absolutely, yeah.
yeah,
And sometimes it can be annoying that, like, one of my least favorite things about touring is the waiting to play, because it's not that I don't want to talk to anybody. It's far from that. It's, just before you're playing, especially if you're like opening, sometimes it's fucking brilliant because your stuff is there. You get on, you play it, then you come off and you're great. But if it's something that you're on last, it's like I just kind of walk around in circles. I'll have like 2 minute small talk conversations with everyone. And then I'm like, oh, I have to go do something. I don't have to do anything. Can't
need to go.
I
Yeah,
can't concentrate on a conversation, so I'll just kind of go
keep it
stand
in the
outside,
zone. Yeah, 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 yeah.
yeah, on my own, and just be like, and then someone else will talk, and I'll do the same thing, and I'll just
2 minutes. Yeah.
kind of, yeah, walk around, and then when the band chorus is on, that's when I'll start doing kind of hand rudiments and doing a couple stretches and stuff. But
Cool.
yeah,
Cool.
I'm an
That's
awkward fuck.
We all are.
not at
We
all.
all are.
That's very insightful, Evan. Great to hear that. And there's a lot to be taken from that for a lot of listeners out there. There's intention
Yeah.
behind it. If you're a player and you're looking to do the same sort of thing that Evan's doing, preparing the same way, it's very simple. Give a shit.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's it.
yeah,
Care, apply yourself, bring that professional attitude, and that's something I don't think that gets spoken about enough. Just you made a great
yeah,
point there about
absolutely.
showing up to practice, knowing what you need to have done, having it done, being ready to go. You're not wasting your time, you're not wasting anyone else's time, and you're there to make progress. Yeah, that's huge.
Yeah, absolutely. Like at the minute now, in between the amount of tours that we have, like WornOut is writing, Uncultivates and have an album coming out, and I'm kind of like trying to push myself as far as I can every time, and like definitely with the new stuff from both bands, it's like I've definitely moved up to a level, but I'm in that stage now where I'm like, the looking after my body is even more important, because the things that I'm trying and the things I'm doing aren't fully muscle memory yet, because I'm still writing, I'm still figuring it out. Do you know that kind of thing of like you could be on the seat of your pants because you're trying this really weird rhythm and you're trying to put a lot into it, that it's like I don't just have this fully normally, where like some of the old songs, we only really practice them before a tour or whatever, and they're not, we don't have to worry about them, they're grand. But when we're writing stuff like this, and the kind of technicality of it all, um, I need to, I can't, I need less variables to go
You're
wrong. So the
you're
more I can
running
get
at
those,
full bandwidth.
yeah,
You know,
Yeah,
it's 90,
absolutely. Yeah. Like
98% computer power is being used.
yeah, yeah. It's like, it's that same thing with, practice and repetition. It will get easier. And like even starting with Uncultivates, like there's 64 beat blasts, kind of 64 bars of blasts on some stuff. And you're
Jesus.
like you'd be fucking wrecked by the end of it. But whereas now I've gotten so much more used to that I'm throwing in a lot more blasts. And I do all of it single foot. I don't use 2 feet. Um, and I've just, now that is part of my repertoire, that I did it so much. I focused on what I was doing, that if somebody wants me to do, you know, a very long blast section, I'm like, yeah, cool, that's grand. I'll do it. Whereas 2 or 3 years ago, I would have been like, oh, well, maybe we'll try, I'll try something. How about we try this instead? Just because I was afraid of it. I was like, I can't do this. But now doing it over and over and over, pushing myself, I've got to that level that, I've ticked that off, and I'm happy where that is. And now I'm starting to move up to other things. But again, to keep bringing it back is, if I feel tight, if my body's not right, um, I could go into something that my brain is like, you can definitely do this. And then, like you're kind of like the floppy galloping and everything. It's like, then you're almost scared to want to try that again. Whereas if you feel good and you can't get it, it's just because you haven't done it enough, and you will get it after a while. But I just wish that I was kind of warming up and stuff like this, and folk playing and thinking about music the way I do now. I wish I did that when I was like 20, 21. I always loved music. I was always incredibly passionate, but I didn't know. I wanted to kind of do it forever, but I didn't know that it could be a possibility then. So I was just enjoying everything that I could and learning everything. But if I
Oh, part of life too, though.
yeah, it is. Like I think if you focus on practice and, trying to get things right straight away, it'll make a massive difference, because then you're not thinking about it.
Mm.
It's not something like, you'll get lads now in their 30s, they have a certain way of doing it, that they're like, oh yeah, I'll just show up and do this, until things start moving faster than they can keep up with. And they're like, oh, fuck this, I'm not doing that. That's not fun. Whereas, putting in that extra work and trying to push myself is fun now. Do you know what I mean? Like, struggling to a certain degree is
Yeah.
fun, because when I do get past that, I'm like ecstatic. You know that moment where you're like, I've
Yeah,
just become a better drummer. I've
But like you just said about the blast beating, like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like, you're not afraid of it anymore. And
I'm
there's a
not afraid
perfect,
of it. Yeah,
I'm not
absolutely.
afraid anymore.
Yeah, I'm not afraid. But it is that thing where you're like, you know,
No, yeah, it's exactly what you said. Like,
you
you're training your mind right, you're training your body right. When that comes in, yeah, let's do it. Okay, let's
yeah.
go.
People
Whereas,
underestimate the mind a lot, I think, when it comes, and this can go with any instrument.
of
People
course,
underestimate the mind. I find with drums, as I was saying earlier, if there's something I'm trying to figure out, like I'll video everything when we're writing, and I'll have like a top down thing, and I'll just sit and
nice.
watch. Right. This is the part that I'm struggling at. Where is my left hand when I'm supposed to, like if you're busting, and the one is, and then you're finding out where the one is, but your left hand is on your snare when it should be here. You're like, okay, right. Does that mean that I'm starting this wrong? Should I be coming in somewhere? Should I be doing an extra hit, something there? And trying to be like, where is my body relevant to what's going to happen next? And even little things like that, where your body's in position for the next part, means that the whole thing will flow better, rather than be kind of like over here and then trying to get over here and then remembering that you have to be over here. But even without sitting at a kit, just really, really, really sitting and thinking about what you're doing almost in slow motion. Then the next time you go to play, at least for me, without having played in between those times, I can just do it, because I've thought about it so much. I've thought about the physicality of it. Um, that something just clicks in my brain. And once you figure it out here, getting it into your body that's just a matter of time. But if it doesn't make any sense here, your body's just going to guess all the time. Do you know, you'd be like, oh, I don't know what's going on. Whereas when you have an idea and you know what it is, then it's just having your body catch up with your mind.
Yeah, make the connection between the two. It's very fascinating. I'm not a drummer. I don't play any instrument. I find this fascinating, this whole chat, to be honest. It's very interesting.
Yeah, no, this is brilliant. There's like a great wee subsection that I might even upload as another podcast on practice, just in general. And
Yeah,
I think that was great what you said, Evan, about when you break that ceiling and you say to yourself, wow, I'm actually becoming a better drummer here.
Yeah.
I can see that where the variable is. Do you know, I
Yeah.
can measure it. And
Mhm.
there's been a bit of discussion in the last while about it, but people saying, maybe a half hour is enough. But for a while there, I was talking to Gavin about it that, Mario de Plantier de Gojira, for those of you who don't know, has this regime of playing an hour of double pedal singles every day, from
Thomas Pridgeon does something similar as well. Yeah.
yeah, Pridgeon does some crazy stuff too, where he
Yeah.
just now Pridge is off the wall at times with some of that stuff that
Yeah.
he just takes it to the next level. But that's why, and an interesting one, if you want to talk about Pridgeon after I finish about Mario, is that's sometimes what it takes to be the best is putting in those reps. Like you've said, to take it to that height, and when his warm up is 175 BPM for singles, to finish at like 225 after an hour, and he's sitting there drenched in sweat. You're like, yeah,
Yeah.
that's taking it to where it's at. That's
Yeah.
finding that's finding a seventh gear, not a sixth one.
Yeah. Yeah. I find as well, there's one thing that it's the same with, like, if you see people about, like, the gym, looking after yourself and all this, and they're like, look, you just have to get up and do it and get up and do it. And like, as much as I'm very much like, look, fuck it, I have to do it, there is a certain degree that I feel like isn't talked about, that, that whole bullshit of like, oh, everyone has the same amount of hours in a day. That can fuck off, because not everybody, works. Say if you have someone that works late shifts, might have, like kids or something as well that they have to come home to. It's like the window for actual free time, regardless if you're absolutely wrecked or not, can be very small. And I think, when you see things of people being like, oh yeah, I've practiced for like 8 hours a day for like a year, and then now I'm just unbelievable. It's like, yeah, I can imagine you are, but a normal person, like, music isn't my full-time job. I have a job. I work Monday to Friday, 8 to 4:30, and then I do everything else after it. I do all DeadCult stuff. I do all the bands, book all the tours, mostly during work. But you know, it's one of those things that, although it is great to like put time aside to practice, I think sometimes people can, like, it almost does damage to your brain with this pressure that you can put yourself on. It's the same with if people are trying to lose weight and they have one little treat and they think, oh, I fucked it all. But finding ways to practice without practicing has been a massive thing. Like I was saying about like physically thinking, watching yourself play. Like if you're on a bus to work, watch a video of the last, like record yourself and watch what it was that you were trying to do that you weren't able to do, and use the time in between things to do stuff like that. Because let's face it, some people's practice spaces might be a 40-minute drive away. You can't expect them after work every single night to come back and be like, right, cool, I'm going to drive 40 minutes and do this. People don't have that kind of time in their lives. So it's like, I think for me, it's that magic thing of like, right, how do I find ways to fit little things in? And then even when you haven't had, like, say if there's a week between going out to play and you come back out and something's clicked, even though you haven't, you know, physically played, or even if you're just fucking tapping on a desk, tap on your hands, air drum, do whatever you can. That stuff will make a difference. It's great seeing like, oh, Thomas Pridgeon, I do rudiments around the kit and then I change it and I do that for a ridiculous amount of time. It's like some people don't have that amount of time, do you know?
I
And
think
it can put people off being like, ah, well, I just won't bother then, like, do you know?
I do agree with some of the statements there for sure, Evan. And I think one thing that is overlooked massively in this day and age is information is so readily available and everything needs to be flash or it needs to
Yeah.
be cool and it's like the next thing. But people are,
The Instagram drummer, like,
yeah, the Instagram drummers are they're looking at shorts. I'm sure a lot of people have seen
yeah,
plenty of shorts of Thomas Pridgeon's Drumeo, but they likely haven't watched the full episode. And I think it's in
yeah,
that one or it's on a podcast he talks about being fortunate enough to have studied and taken lessons from Tony Williams. And for anyone who
yeah,
isn't familiar with Tony Williams, he is regarded to be one of the best drummers and drummers in jazz in particular ever to have picked up a set of sticks.
mhm,
And Thomas spoke about playing double strokes during his lessons with Tony for a long time. And he's like, why are we just playing double
mhm.
strokes? And reinforcing the idea of all your rudiments being multiples or being a combination
The
of
key to
singles
everything.
and doubles, that they are going to be your keys. That I think everybody is scanning over, not everybody, there are a vast amount of people that are scanning over things this weather and in this day and age, that there is such a lack of depth. It's
Yeah.
it's outrageous. If you can
Hmm.
spend that time, like you said, on one or two focal points, you're going to
Yeah.
see so much more improvement.
Absolutely. Like even, spending, if you have an hour and you just like, don't worry about trying to do all these flashy rolls. It's like, because a song isn't going to be an entire roll. If some of the most impressive drums or my favorite drum parts are just super, super straightforward grooves, super easy. Just like I was saying earlier, it's like when my friend would play my kit, same cymbals, and he just whatever he would play would just sound way better because he had like a feel, because he'd just been playing and kind of naturally. Everyone has their own feel, but like even saying sound checks and stuff, someone you'll get people that'll get up and knowing that there's other drummers in the room, they'll try to do something, and then you'll just get up a guy that's just sitting there like checking the kit and he's just playing the tightest, super simple, but it just sounds so good because he's got all his fundamentals there. He's got the tightness and he's got a natural feel to it that it's more impressive than him doing this insanely massive blast thing. You're like, okay, but can you hold down a groove? Like, can you? It's not all about being
Flamboyant.
sane. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, it's not. Which is what you get with the Instagram drummer thing. Which look, it's cool and all, but Keane O'Sullivan from Cork is a perfect example. One of the most impressive drummers I've ever seen. And a lot of the time when I'm watching, he's just playing super simple, tight grooves, but it's a sound that he gets out of a kit. It's Some people can get like a snare that you think sounds like crap, and then they start playing it, and you're like, why does that sound so good? Do you know, like they play to the drums, they play to the kit. It's not I'm going to play at the kit. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, interesting. Service the instrument or whatever way you want to put it. But
Yeah.
some great words there. Will we talk about some of your gigs coming up? Maybe I know you have. you're heading out. I seen on your Instagram today, actually, you're heading out to where did I see that? With Mastiff, is it in July?
Yeah, so with WornOut, we have a Scottish tour
Yes,
in April.
below the
Um,
neck. Is that who you're supporting?
yeah, they're good friends of ours now. We've done a few tours with them. We love Scotland. It'll be the second time we're back there, but we've meaning to get back for a while. Really looking forward to that tour. Then so we have that, and then the next week we have Adam Fest.
Yes, on the
Cork.
chat
That's our
about that.
only Irish gig this year for it's an MS fundraiser for a friend of ours. And then the week after we have Southwest Heavy Fest in Somerset, and I'm working on another show around then as well in the UK. And then July we have with Mastiff to make sure that I don't announce a gig that isn't announced.
Yeah.
Um, oh, and the with I've there's loads more come worn out. Uncultivates the 11th and 12th of April, so the week before
Adam
the
Fest, isn't it?
it's the week before the Scottish tour
Oh, right.
with worn out, which is the week before Adam Fest.
Wow, man, you're busy.
Yeah, and they're like the bands are totally different brain
Yeah.
as well, you know. But we're Dublin and Cork with Mastiff, um, and we've an album that'll be coming out, so we're just kind of getting everything
Yes.
ready for that now. Doing like videos and things like that, so that'll come out when it.
Wasn't there a single? Did you just release a single from it? Yeah,
No,
you did.
no, we
No.
haven't released
No.
anything. We actually recorded the entire album ourselves in our practice space, which when you hear how good it sounds, Joe Clayton, he mixed and mastered it. He did the last Worn Out EP as well, but
Yeah.
Joe is incredible. It sounds so good. So that'll come out when we if we could just put it out today, we would. It's all fully done. It's just, the prep behind everything to make
Timing is
it
key.
worth it kind of thing.
To make it go the extra
But
mile.
That's it.
yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I want to get
back back
too much to
back to Adam Fest. It's a great fundraiser too, isn't it? That's in Cork, isn't it?
Yeah, there's one in Dublin as well, the day before.
All
Our
right.
friend, Adam
Brilliant.
Moore, he was the guitarist in Hero and Error, but he unfortunately has MS, and he's getting stem cell research treatment, and this whole gig is 100% of the funds are going to him. No, all the bands are playing for free. Everyone's donating their time.
Yeah, it's brilliant. It's brilliant. Hero an Hour, isn't it? Who else?
Hero and Error, yeah.
Pico,
We have
yourselves.
Code Speaker and Nilo as well.
Nico.
So
Yeah.
it'll be like, I think there's like a third of the tickets already gone. So I can imagine that'll be fully sold out by the time the 25th of April comes from. It'll be quite an emotional day because Adam is coming down as well, and having Adam there and Tanya and everyone will be. I can
Yeah.
imagine there'll be and with the history that with Adam and Hero and Error,
Yes.
there'll be there'll definitely be tears, but it's one of
Yeah.
those
Yeah.
gigs that you're like, as stressful as music gets, and when you're times when you have loads going on, it does kind of take over your entire life, and you're like, what the fuck is going on? But
Yeah. Yeah.
when you're able
Fair play
to
to
do
you,
things
though. It's
like
a great,
things like
great.
this, you're like, Jesus, we can make a difference by just
Yeah.
having lads
Fair.
playing music and lads kick the shit out of each other. Like, this,
Yeah.
this is amazing.
Brilliant. Yeah. Am I right in saying is there a link to donate as well if you can't make it?
Yeah, yeah. You'll find even if you just search Adam Moore GoFundMe,
Yeah.
you'll
We'll add
find
the links in here. We'll add the
brilliant.
links.
Yeah, yeah.
Brilliant.
But
Hero
yeah,
Hero Now is a brilliant band too. It's a band.
unreal. Yeah, yeah.
Unfortunately, I haven't got to catch live yet.
You'll have to come down to Cork, so
Jesus, we might have to make a trip.
I do, boys.
Um,
You can see my kit.
definitely.
Oh no, you won't.
Yeah.
Not my kit. You'll see Comfy's. I think it's his Premier kit. Lovely kit.
Nice.
Last time we did a tour with them, I got blood on his toms. It was the first of a 3 or 4 days tour, and it was just one of those things. I hit my knuckle off my snare. Oh, sorry, it's my left hand. And first song. So I had a full
Split it.
30, 40 bleeding on him, and I was like, I'm so sorry. And he's like, nah, it's all good. I'm like, oh, thank fuck.
Evan, we have to mention then DeadCult Promotions before we go.
Yeah.
Where did they come from, or what was the idea? Did you just see a window, or what?
Um, it was, I've always loved the kind of behind the scenes thing of music. And as I was saying earlier as well, Bob Ryan, one of my biggest influences, like he was a huge influence on me on like running a band and booking gigs and, the zoo in Kilkenny for the all ages gigs. So I've always been doing it. But during COVID, too much time on your hands and your brain is going 90. So I just said to myself, it's like, right, if we come out of COVID, because at that stage we had no idea if music would even come back. I had the Facebook page and the Instagram page made. I had everything ready to go, and I kind of had a lot of time to think about what my manifesto or what my mission statement was, and it's basically just to be able to kind of one build a serious community in Cork and have people really feel like they're part of a scene, and to kind of, even though things might happen on a local level, it doesn't mean they have to be treated as such. So, having high quality bands, even the down to the posters, because people won't take it seriously if you're using just a shitty MS Paint. The
Yeah.
People say they won't judge straight away, but they will. I've done it myself where you see a poster and it looks crap, and you instantly just think, right, it's probably not going to be a good gig. Little things like that, bringing bands from the UK over, just really trying to show people why I love the Cork scene and the Irish scene so much. And the way to do that is to bring, like, really I curate a lot of these gigs. We get emails. I got 2 emails for bands looking for gigs during this interview.
Right.
I can't reply to them all. I can't put everyone on, but it's one of those things that, like, I watch what everyone's doing, and bands that are really pushing and trying, sooner or later they'll get an email from me or a message being like, hey, I have a gig, because I curate them for a certain vibe. I'll handpick things. And so does
Mm.
Kenzie, who works with me with Dead Cult. And you know, the reason that the gigs sell out so often is because we put so much heart and time, and we make sure that the money that people are spending, because people don't have loads of money to be spending on gigs, that if they are going to spend their money on it, it's going to be worth it. You know, so, and people have been very trusting of us so far. And
Yeah, I have to say, like I came across your page, like, and one that stood out was the was it a Tool?
oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I thought the posters and everything it
yeah.
looked fucking
That's
brilliant,
actually,
and it sold out, right? I remember
yeah,
that.
sold out 200 tickets. And like, I don't use any Instagram ads. I don't use anything like that. It's all just pushing and pushing, and you know, doing things kind of old school. Um, it's just work for us. We're very lucky that there's people, we have recurring customers a lot. A
Deadly.
lot of people on Eventbrite. A lot of the time, like if you follow us on Eventbrite or anything, I'll put the tickets up for sale an hour or two before I actually announce the gig.
Yeah.
Sometimes you might get 5 or 6 tickets sold. People will just, they'll
Wow.
they'll trust us that the gig is going to be good, that they'll never have heard any of the bands, but they'll blind buy because they're like, yeah, I trust what the lads are doing. And it's what makes Dead Cult and Cork amazing is the people that are going to the gigs. The Cork crowds are, there's literally no one like them. We bring bands from the UK over. Everyone says
Right.
it. They're like, this is insane. It's one of the most heartwarming things is, you know, when we're back over in the UK, hearing from friends of friends being like, oh, they said that the Cork gig that you had on was the best gig they've ever played. And I'm like, unreal. That's, yeah.
That's
And
brilliant.
people,
What's the Fred Zeppelin's and is there a new an old venue that has reopened or something in Cork? No, recently.
Dally, it was Crack Jenny's. I do the live band booking for them as well. Oh, that's
Yeah.
another thing that I do as well. Yeah, that's the.
You need to cut yourself in half, man.
I know. Yeah, Jesus Christ. Yeah, like
Make two of
that's
yourself.
Yeah, it's basically another kind of job that I do where I book the live music for bands for Dali, and we're just trying to build it into a space.
And is it just Cork? You're not promoting?
No, we like again the massive gig. We have Fibbers up there. I've done stuff in the UK. We've done Kilkenny. We've done like
Have you ever come up our way, around Drogheda there or
not
Dundalk?
yet,
No.
not yet. But it's not to say we wouldn't. We'll
Yeah.
definitely be able to
Some
do.
good venues like the Spirit Store and
Spirit
McHugh's.
stores on. I'm up in Spirit store at least once a year because my girlfriend plays in Punchett's Pilot and the Nail Drivers.
Okay.
And they sell out the Spirit store every year near Christmas. So I usually go down
Good
and
venue. Yeah. It's a good
yeah,
venue.
oh, it's unreal. It's savage. Yeah, yeah.
Let
Yeah.
me know the next time yous are up with those, Evan, because I know Ian Walsh that plays drums with those
Yeah,
guys.
yeah, yeah. Ian, they're playing with Bad Manners on Sunday, so I'll be at that. But yeah, I think I'll have to ask Emily when I go downstairs, but I'm pretty sure it's September this year. I
Cool.
could be
Cool.
wrong. I'll check anyway, but I'm hopefully I'll be up for that again.
Italy, we'll have
Nice.
to meet up.
Yeah, and hopefully I'm not as busy and I can have a pint.
Man, that was brilliant. We could talk for hours. Jesus, we might have to get you back if you're up for it because
Oh, 100%. I
you know,
really enjoyed this now. Yeah, being able to, honest to God, being able to talk about drums now is like, don't get me wrong, I love talking about the band and promoting everything, but I put up on my story a while ago being like, does anyone want to just talk about fucking drums? Like,
yeah, it was lovely to get that message from you to come on. It was brilliant.
yeah, you were the first person that people said to me, and I was like, why didn't I even think of
Yeah,
that? Like, but
cool.
yeah, I really, really enjoyed this. This was great. Now,
Yeah, definitely. We'll have to do it again. But
yeah, definitely.
yeah, so look, that's it for this week's episode then, and check us again soon. All right, bye for now.